Scottish folktale that typically would have been told at a christening or at a beautiful choral event. So, my mic is on, yeah. It's not. Is that, that's not. How's that? Okay, thank you. So, the story begins with a young mother. She had been having a dream of magnificent singing, but when she woke, she found herself in a place she did not know. And she sat up and she asked, "Where is my child? Where is my baby girl?" And the older woman who had been taking care of her said, "When we found you, you were at the bottom of the cliff on the edge of the sea. My dear, you were alone. I fear your child was taken." And the mother said, No. Before I began climbing down, I took my baby. I wrapped her up so she would be warm and safe, and I put her next to the path so she would not be hurt. Go back and find her. And so the villagers went to find the child in the place the mother had described, and they looked forward and back, but there was nothing there. So they came home and they told her, "Someone must have taken your child in. We're sure she's fine. She's being well taken care of. Come, bide with us. You may stay here. You can be one of our own." And she said, "No, I must go find my child." And so she left and she began to search. She went from village to village to village, always asking, but none had seen her child. And then finally, she came to an encampment of people whom some would call gypsies, but who called themselves travelers. And she thought, they have seen more than all. I will ask them. And so she went and she asked if they had found her child, or if they had heard of anyone who had found a baby girl. And they said no. But soon we are leaving and traveling to the north, and there is a woman there, eldest and wisest of all. If you come with us, you may ask her, and perhaps she can tell you where to find your child. And so the young mother went with the travelers. They journeyed far, far, far to the north until finally they came to their destination. She came before the old woman, eldest and wisest of all, and she told her story. The old woman noisily adjusted her scarf. And she took the young woman's hand and she said, "My dear, sit with me by the fire. Hold my hand." And the two of them settled next to the flames, and there they sat. They sat as the day came to a close and night fell. They sat beneath the stars. And then, again at midnight, the old woman stood. She took a handful of herbs and she cast them into the flames, and the smoke billowed up and wrapped around the old woman. And she breathed in the smoke, and she gazed into the fire, and she listened to the voice of the flames. And then she sat next to the young mother with tears down her cheeks, and she said, "My child, the fair folk have taken your baby, and what they take almost never returns. You must give up your search." And the young mother said, "Can you not give me a blessing? Can you not give me a spell?" "No," said the old woman. My wisdom is only as old as humankind, but the wisdom of the she goes back to the beginning of time. Nothing I could do would be stronger than they. Well, said the young mother, if my child is gone, I have nothing to live for. Wait, said the old woman. Bide with us a time, and perhaps a way shall be found. And so the young mother waited. The days passed, and the time came for the travelers to resume their journeys, and the old woman came to her, and she said, soon will be the night when all the she gather in the home beneath the hill of their king. If you can go and bring them a gift to gain entrance to their home under the hill, and a gift to win back your child, perhaps your baby girl will be yours again. What kind of gift should I bring? She, for all their wisdom, they have no skill in creating things. You must create something so wondrous, so unique, that they have not seen anything like it. And then they will let you in. And then they will return your daughter to you. Where am I to find something like that? Said the mother. I am a poor woman. I have nothing. That is not for me to say, said the old woman. And with that, the travelers gathered their belongings and they left. But the young mother stayed. And she thought, and she thought, and she thought. She thought of things that she had heard that kings have, that queens love. And then she began to think of the stories she had heard, the legends she had been told. She thought of the white cloak of Neptune, and she thought of the harp with the golden strings. And then her mind cleared, and she knew. She stood and she went to the sea, and she climbed back and forth over the rocks, collecting the soft white down from the eider ducks that nested there. And when she had enough, she took the feathers, and she wove them into a white cloak until it looked like she held a cloud in her arms. And then she cut off her long golden hair, and she put aside a lock, and the rest she took and she wove into a border with flowers and fruit and leaves all the way around the cloak. And then she placed it under the gorse where it would be safe. And she returned to the sea. And again she walked up and down, and she saw the bones of a sea creature. The sun had bleached them white, and the waves had worn them smooth until they were like ivory. And she took them, and she shaped them, and she bent them into the frame of a harp. And she took her hair, she made the strings. She played a single note, and that note was filled with such love and such longing that the very birds in the sky froze to listen. And she took the harp and she took the cloak, and she began her journey to find the hill that was the home of the king of the sheep. And she went by the high roads and the by roads. She went by open ways and secret ways. She went by sunlight and by moonlight, and finally she arrived. She came just as the last of the she was approaching the door to the house under the hill. And she put on the cape, and she stepped out. And the she looked at her, the she woman, and she said, that sounds strange, but you know what I mean. And she said, "A mortal, what are you doing here? What are you wearing?" And she said, "This. Oh, it is my cloak. Give it to I must have it. What will you take for it? Well, perhaps, if you would let me in to the gathering for the king of the Sidh, perhaps then I could give you my cloak. Why don't you give me the cloak first, and then we'll see. But she insisted, and so the Sidh reluctantly let the young woman into the hall under the hill. The young mother gave her the cloak. And the rest of the Sidh gathered around to see what she was wearing. And the young mother walked boldly until she stood before the throne of the king of the Sidh. And she took out her harp. She didn't play it, but still the king saw it, and he said, "What have you got there?" He said, "Oh, it is a harp." "Well," he said, "I have many harps, but there is something about your harp. Why don't you give it to me?" She said, No, this harp is unique. This harp is special. There's nothing like it in the world. I would not just give it to you." "Fine. Why don't you just let me play it for a moment to see if the tuning is true?" But she knew that if he got his hands on it, she would never get it back, and so she said no. And he summoned his servants, and he said, "Bring gold." And they piled gold before her up to her knees. He said, "Take this, you'll be richer than a king." And she said no. And then he had them bring jewels, and they piled the jewels up to her waist. And she said no. And he said, "What will you take for the harp?" And she said, "Give me the child that you took from the side of the road above the black cliff on the sea. Give me that child, and I will give you the harp." And the king was reluctant, for he had hoped to keep that child with him under the hill. That harp. And he began to say no, but then again, the young mother reached out and played a single note. The hall fell still, listening to it vibrate. "Fine," said the king. And he had his servants bring the girl, and he said, "She is yours. I must have the harp." And the mother took her baby back. She gave the harp to the king, and he took that harp and he began to play. And he played a song of wild beauty. And she turned to listen, and not one of them saw as the mother, carrying her child, turned and walked back into the